How long has your Polarion server been around for now? Years? Or decades? All your projects and source code are maybe living in this one giant Polarion Subversion repository, and it has reached a point where backup or re-index operations have gotten quite challenging at times. Sounds familiar to you? If so, then maybe you should consider splitting your Subversion repository. What do I mean by that? In simple terms, it means that you are taking this huge repository and separating out projects, users, and other associated data into smaller, focused repositories, including their history. That could mean a dedicated repository for your archive projects, or you are carving out specific business units and their projects into their own repository. Why would you actually do that again? Couple reasons. So first would be speed. When your repository shrinks and becomes more focused, you see, backups, restores, and reindex operations all get faster. Ever had your Polarion index go corrupt during the week? How long did it take for you to recover from that? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is that our users and admins appreciated it when their time was cut from half a day to a few hours. Second, another need for splitting the history we encountered was due to compliance reasons. For one customer, projects from different business units with different regulation levels all lived in the same Polarion repository. Separation was handled only by project groups and access rights, which at some point was no longer considered sufficient. So the solution was to move the affected projects into a separate repository altogether. And you can be sure that they wanted to take their project history with them. By the way, this separation technique isn't necessarily only about creating a separate repository. You can also use it to remove commits where you accidentally added a secret document, a password, or maybe a large attachment that was never meant to be in a repository in the first place. Alright then. So how does this SVN history splitting actually work? Don't worry, no magic involved. For me, it boils down to 3 steps. Let's say the splitting is motivated due to a carve-out of a business unit. Step 1, decide what needs to be split. This is where you want to decide which projects, users, or other kinds of content needs to be contained in the new repository. So once we got that decision down, we can follow up with step 2. We create a set of configurations that serve as the instructions for the scripts and tools that do the actually splitting work. The configurations consist of SVN paths, revisions, and the operations that make up your new repository. Finally, step 3. We run the scripts, which in turn will create a new repository, and we suggest that you first install this new repository in your test environment. Once you have validated the data, you are then good to go with the repository on your production environment. And as for your users, they just then simply log into Polarion as usual. If you want to explore whether SVN history splitting makes sense for you, reach out and let's schedule a short, no obligation call. You bring your biggest worries about your current repository, and we see together how we can shrink them down to size. This has been Roland from SIP Lifecycle Solutions, and we wish you a Merry Christmas.